Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Iron Canon podcast, your home for an in-depth discussion on the lore for the last time, I think, the High Republic and the whole canon of the galaxy far, far away. My name is Matthew, and I'm coming to you from Underworld North Studios in Toronto. And as always, I'm joined from across the continent by your friend of mine, down in Underworld, Orange County, Mr. Joel Davis. How are you doing this week?
The High Republic will always live in our hearts, and that's why we will always make it the home of the High Republic, I say.
Yes.
But I'm doing good. I'm doing well. I'm a little sleepy today, but I'm doing overall pretty good.
That's why get your decaf in. There you go.
Right.
What's the weather like down in SoCal today? What's going on?
It's not as warm as it was this weekend where we hit 90 degrees.
Yeah.
But it's a little warm. It can be a little hot. I'm pretty, but pretty good. It's calming down, thankfully.
I made the mistake of walking outside in this black shirt here in Toronto. It was pretty hot today. It was hit about the 30s. I think might have hit 30s, high 20s. It does indeed. But this week, let's dive in. San Diego Comic-Con. We're continuing or wrapping up, I should say, our San Diego Comic-Con coverage because it culminated in the first ever appearance of the maker himself, George Lucas. He was joined by Oscar-winning director Guillermo Del Toro and longtime Star Wars designer Doug Chiang to introduce the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art, which is set to open next year. And in the Hall H panel, they described the why of the museum. We talked last week. We talked a bit about the what of the museum and hinted at the why. This week, we're going into the why, and because that panel that led to a very moving and profound exploration on the meaning and power of art in our social and cultural consciousness and our political imagination and everything that we love here on Iron Canon. So this week we're unpacking their comments, talk about what that might mean for the way we approach the narrative and visual worlds of Star Wars, because it's the maker talking about art. So let's dive right in. Before we do that, though, I got a few things to do. You can follow us on Blue Sky at ironcannon.bisky.social. It's ironcannon.bisky.social. Also, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Again, all my Star Wars photos from San Diego are up at the SWU, and some Star Wars and mostly Star Trek and Doctor Who are at Culture Slate. Check that out. Also, if audio is more your speed, you can catch us right after tonight. I throw this up onto Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Search Iron Canon Podcast. Don't just do Iron Canon because that's the old feed. You'll get some pretty old episodes, but search Iron Canon Podcast, and that's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and I think a few other podcatchers. Can't quite remember which, but although you maybe should pick the one of your choice if it's there, great. If not, then it's on Spotify and Apple. Also, we are proudly part of the Star Wars Underworld Podcast Network. And here on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel, we have YouTube memberships and we got super chats. So if you chat with us, like if you say hello, we'll get to it as best as we can. Hello, Daisy. If you super chat us, we'll interrupt ourselves to just get to whatever comment you've got. We are grateful for any support you are willing to provide. Last but not least, keep on going. It's not last but not least, but got a few other plugs to go through. The Discord server here on the Underworld Network, the Underworld Discord server, just down below. Got a link, minty fresh link to get you into that Discord server where we're talking about Star Wars. We're talking about Starfighter. We're talking about paper cannon and what that is, and a whole bunch of different things. But I don't know if there's people still talking about Fantastic Four or Superman or other fun nerdy stuff. But down in the description below, you can check that out. And Joel, any events coming up? I believe there are 2 events coming up.
Yeah, this week we're not having not 1 but 2 whole game nights. This upcoming Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and also Friday, same time. Because I have some extra time this week, so I decided why not 2 game nights?
There we go.
1.
Yeah. And that's usually in the voice chat channel. If it's active, then you just pop right in there. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. So yeah, check that out. It's going strong. Love to see it expand into the D&D D&D space. That sounds like a fun time. So yeah, definitely check that out. 2 more plugs to get through, I promise. Tractor Beam Comics Reviews. I'm taking a break every Wednesday. Usually every Wednesday, Chris Abbott and I break down the Star Wars comics and possible comics news of that week. Also, the insider short stories. I got some family stuff I want to do. Want to spend some time with family, so I am taking a break this week. We're taking a break this Wednesday, but as it says there, see you at Fan Expo Canada. That's right, on Friday, August 22nd, at 6 p.m. in Theater 4. If you're there, room 704. Tractor Beam Live, Hive of Scum and Villainy. We all know, we all love Ash. This is her baby, but yeah, coming along for the ride here. Star Wars fans love bounty hunters, right? So Ash and I are joined by special guests Ethan Sachs and Paolo Villanelli. If you know Star Wars comics, you know those names. Ethan Sachs, of course, wrote Bounty Hunters, is writing Poe Dameron Codebreaker right now, and we're gonna talk about Star Wars comics and maybe a little bit of a special guest from a certain some bad guys doing good. We'll see what they've got in store. So yeah, please do check that out. We'll try and get that recorded and see what we can do there. But if you're at Fan Expo Canada, please say hi. Please come by. Be happy to have you there. That's Friday, August 22nd at 6 p.m. in Theater 4, room 704. At 6 p.m. Eastern, of course. Last but not least, Chris Abbott, he did not he remembers what I look like. He did not see me. Put that way. Last night I joined his channel, Star Raptor, Outer M Transmissions, his weekly podcast, and he and I we chatted all about the High Republic, and we reminisced, and we looked at the characters and the themes and the technology and the different factions, and it was a very whirlwind of a conversation because hey, it's the High Republic, it's the whole darn thing, and so you can check that out in the link. At least on YouTube. If you're watching YouTube, you can check that out in the description below, and I'll make sure I get that into the notes on Spotify and Apple, etc. as well. Yeah, it was a great discussion. Went 2.5 hours because again, it's talking about the High Republic, and it could have gone maybe 5 or 6 or 7 or multiple podcasts or something because we got a lot to say about that huge, sprawling, incredibly deep, incredibly rich publishing initiative. So yeah, please do check out Outer M Transmissions. The link is in the description down below. I believe he also throws it up onto audio for your listening pleasure. Yeah, but taking a break from Tractor Beam, we'll be back. Joel and I will be back hopefully next Monday, and then Chris and I will be back the following Wednesday to catch up on the comics and insider short that we missed this week. So please do check that out. That's of course right here on the Underworld YouTube channel. Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific is when we go live. So happy to celebrate that Wednesdays are for comics and comics are for Wednesdays, except for Friday, August 22nd, when Fridays are for comics. Comics are for Fridays. Who knows? Anyways, I'm looking forward to that. But without further ado, I think that's finally got through the plugs. We got through the plugs, Joel. We'll pick them up again at the end if you missed anything. Pick them up at the end, but let's dive right in. What are our thoughts, our feelings, our hopes, and our dreams for this week in Star Wars? Take it away, Mr. Davis.
Oh, I have lots of dreams. They'll be crushed. I'm just kidding. Here's lies, Joel's hopes and dreams. The SpongeBob joke. Okay. No. So this was a thought I thought about this week, just as I think of Star Wars, because that's what I do. I am nerd.
What? What?
I know, right?
Are you on YouTube talking about Star Wars and you're a nerd?
Nerd.
Good news.
So you know that line in Episode 3 where Obi-Wan goes, "Anakin, my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy." I love that line. If you are not with me, then you're my enemy. Peace and justice to my new empire. I don't know why I made Anakin's voice so squeaky.
He's a squeaky guy.
He is a squeaky guy. We love hating for that. And I was thinking about that the other day, and I feel like, honestly, that line is like the for only time I can think of, at least in the 6 films, where someone actually stands for something politically.
Hmm.
And maybe because like I feel like all the other times, and if we discount the books and comics and just stick to the 6 films as shown to the audience.
Yeah.
We know what the characters stand against. They hate the Empire, they hate the Sith, they hate the dark side. Don't like any of that stuff. But what are we actually fighting for here? What is the rebellion actually fighting for? We don't know. They never say. They never call it the Alliance to restore the Republic in anything until Rebels. We don't hear Mon Mothma going, "We're going to restore the Republic, and we're going to have the Senate again. I'll be Chancellor because I'm awesome." That's what I'm sure. That's what Ash heard when she watched Return of the Jedi. I mean, there's maybe some spiritual stuff like Luke's like, "Hey, Dad, can you stop being evil and rejoin the light side?" No, please, no, please. Mom would want you to. Okay, son. But in terms of like, I stand for this political system. I feel like that's the closest we ever heard Obi-Wan say, like my allegiance to the Republic, to democracy. And I guess if you don't count the Attack the Clones novelization, where Dooku says to the Separatist is the pro-capitalism and pro-free trade. We will destroy the tariffs. Right? I mean, that is the closest. I mean, obviously, there's Palpatine's "I love democracy" line. But in terms of like the good guys for a half second, it's interesting. Like, we don't. I don't actually you can mainly make the argument. And I was thinking about this when I'm applying this to the sequel trilogy characters. What do they actually stand for? What are they actually fighting for? And I feel like maybe Rise of Skywalker Episode 9 was gonna get us to that place because Last Jedi was definitely doing the heavy lifting, but Rise of Skywalker it kind of dropped a lot of stuff. So I feel like that sort of gets lost in the ether. So, but then I'm like, well, the original trilogy characters, you don't really know what they stand for after this empire's gone, and you only know that if you read the supplementary material or the novelizations. That's in the novelization, but let's face it, how many people probably read the novelization of A New Hope? Probably not many. If at it, well, I'm sure there were a few.
I think I have.
True, I mean at the time, and coming out, like, so we don't really. The movies never say, like, no one ever said. Leia never states, like, we are going to restore the Republic. For all she's just fighting to go back to be Queen of Alderaan. All hail. So I don't know. I was thinking about that line of Revenge of the Sith the other day, and like, is that really the only time someone's actually stated like where they stand on like a political issue? The Republic and democracy. Sorry, I love saying it like that. But no, that's just kind of my weird thought, and kind of very interesting that at least in terms of the 6 films, no one really ever states where they actually stand politically on things. It's kind of interesting. Except I guess anti the Empire. But being anti the Empire doesn't really mean you're pro anything. You can be anti the Empire and pro restoration of the monarchy. All hail. So I just thought
it's an interesting thought, and it's true. My mind does go to Admiral Holdo, saying, "We're the spark that will restore the Republic."
And then she dies.
And then Poe changes that line to say, "We're the spark that will bring down the First Order." So
they never build on that again, sadly.
They never, So it's true. They're like, so I'm gonna channel Ellie of Daughters of Ferrix, or Friends of Daughters of Ferrix, and she had talked about how it's a fantasy. It's not trying to be too grounded, and this speaks to the way Star Wars is more of a fantasy. It is more of we're trading in wider, broader themes, broader scope of principles like hope and freedom. And I mean, even Obi-Wan, he's saying to democracy. He isn't being specific in that moment either. He's just,
I guess, the Republic as a system before the emergency powers, I guess.
Yeah, there's that. So there's that. I honestly, though, here's the funny. I'm interesting you picked out that line. Oh, sorry, I did have my decaf, but I only had it like half an hour ago. Sorry, you guys. Oh no, sorry. I'm interesting you picked out that line. I always found that an odd thing for him to be his allegiance to, right? given, my real world mind being like, why is a Jedi Knight? Why is his allegiance to saying to a Sith? Why is allegiance to democracy, to the Republic, not to the Jedi and the Force and the light side? But maybe that's the script thing.
Jedi theocracy, let's go.
Well, that's true. I mean, what?
It's like the old days, Holy Roman
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I mean, I guess it concretizes it more to say the Republic and democracy. And you can make a case why someone who is a servant of the light side or claiming to be aspiring to be a servant of the light side would have the allegiance to democracy and not to theocracy. I mean, I can definitely make the case in the real world why I think democratic principles are a good idea. As a Christian, I can say that. I should be saying that. And concerned about the slide in democratic ideals throughout the world. But yeah, it's true that, again, I think, yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't even know if Obi-Wan's gone there that deeply. I think that's why I want to see someone like Mon Mothma come out and say, this is what I believe, maybe in Ahsoka or something. This is what I believe about democratic governance. Oddly enough, the one maybe the most concrete example we have, oddly enough, and this kind of doesn't work with what you're the way you qualified it, but Anakin and Tarkin in the Clone Wars arc, where they're talking about, we need a stronger hand at the top. We need this more authoritarian system. I'm not saying
justice to my new empire.
Well, sure, but I'm saying even while we're cheering for them, trying to get out of the Citadel, they're going around the Citadel here, the Separatist prison, and we're cheering for them to get out. But then they're saying these things like, wait a minute, hold on a second. Oh, so this is where their friendship blossoms. And of course, if you could call it blossoming in the Empire between Vader and Tarkin. But yeah,
mutual respect.
Yeah, mutual respect. I think that we're not going to really find this kind of detailed political theory in Star Wars. It's not the genre. It's a fantasy.
And, although it's weird that in some ways Star Wars is sort of emblematic of one of my biggest issues in modern politics, where like everyone's anti something.
Yes.
And like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't like dictatorship as much as the next guy, and like I'm all about the freedom. But it's like, what do you like? People say like, I want freedom. Okay, what does that look like for you? Yeah. Like, what like, hey, the Soviets thought they were free. The Soviet Socialist Republic, they were free. They had a, like when those revolutionaries were doing stuff, they had like a whole system idea of what they wanted to do. People had ideas of what they wanted, not just like I'm anti-fascist. Which is good. I mean, glad for you. But what are you pro after? Anti-fascist, pro restore the monarchy, pro put the Pope in power. I don't know. Hey, I just think of the most extreme things.
Could do worse.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But you know what I mean. Or just heck, like we just put Joe Biden back as president. That worked out great. But I just feel like it is just kind of one of those interesting things where it's sort of like, especially people who love using Star Wars as sort of like their political compass, where it's like, yeah, if you're anti-empire, I'm all for that. But let's face it, Star Wars doesn't really give you what comes after, or pro, I don't know, something. Pro the Senate, I guess.
Yeah, legislative assemblies, they're fun. Non-dairy creamer is what you're getting at. The non-dairy creamer syndrome. You know what I mean by that, where it's defined by what it isn't.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a problem with, here's a wide brush. It's a problem with the Enlightenment tradition. It's a problem with, a lot of, even the Disney stories, reducing everything down to choice and not saying, what are you being free for? I do think High Republic does a great job of saying free. Like I've talked about this a lot, right? Diversity for its own sake, or diversity for the sake of developing and building a richer community and upholding everybody, right? The virtue of being a welcoming place and ensuring people are practiced and welcome, and in supporting the vulnerable in the next generation. That is diversity for the sake of a richer community. Whereas, often we do kind of, we like to tell stories about diversity for its own sake. And I get that, part of that is undoing the the anti-diversity crowd, right? The alt-right, all those folks.
The fact that most of cinema has been white for the last 60 years, 100 years.
Yeah. Although, here's an interesting thing. This is a bit of a tangent. I would say 60, 70 years ago, cinema wasn't white. It was Jewish. And back when Jews weren't white. Jews are now white. But
some of them are. Some of them are. Some of them. It's complicated.
Like the movie, what's it called? The Oscar, Adrian Brody won the Oscar for The Brutalist.
Ooh.
That's a movie about when Jews weren't white, right after the Holocaust, right?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so it's interesting how it's come into more recently this thing of you have a choice and I'm free, but you don't. Yeah, so yeah, I think it's a good point. I don't know that's the odd thing. How do we say? Can we have a story where Alexander Freed gives us the story a little bit of, or at least to grapple with it. That's one of the amazing things about Mask of Fear is you have Mon Mothma grappling with all these different conceptions. Well, we don't want this. We don't want this Palpatine authoritarianism. But for some folks, it is restoring a monarchy. For some folks, it is legitimately going back to a functioning representative legislature. For some folks, it's separatism. Yeah. And for some folks, it's, well, whatever. I don't care what happens as long as I get my bank, And she has to appeal to all these folks to get this bill passed. Mm-hmm. And of course, Palpatine just vetoes the most important parts of it. They're the only important parts of it. So, yeah.
That would have been something. That's actually something I'd like to see because Andor couldn't cover it for probably a variety of reasons. Mm-hmm. Probably because you have to work with the time constraints of seeing the rebellion kind of become more of a loose coalition of just we all hate the Empire to the more built-in Empire. I mean, not built-in Empire. The more rebellion that we see in the originals, the one that's organized and that actually has sort of a cohesive idea of okay, the idea is we're gonna restore the Republic. We're gonna return the Senate. We're gonna reverse the emergency powers. And if some of those old visual dictionaries are believed, we're gonna even reform the Republic. So now all senators have to be directly elected. That's a rule. You have to be directly elected. They can't just be appointed by martial dictator of your planet.
That's true.
So something like that would be nice.
That's something that hasn't been explored enough, I don't think. The fact that different forms of representation or appointment and the way that contributes. Maybe Beaumont Kin goes into that. I need to read that book.
We talked about that a little bit when we talked about in the booth. If Jar Jar was senator, would that make Padme the representative, like the default junior, or
who knows? There's one more thing I want to say about that, but then I forgot. That's okay. If
it comes to you later, feel free to.
Yeah, I'll hopefully come back to it. But in the meantime, I might as well jump into mine. It was a good thought. Kind of a bit on the other side there. Vader. Oh no, I remember what I was going to say. Okay. So Alex Segura's Battle of Jakku run. Yeah. The Chuck Wendig Aftermath trilogy, especially I have this in my mind. Mark Thompson as Mon Mothma to Padme. We're building a government now.
I mean, to Leia. Yeah. Padme's dead.
Sorry, to Leia. I don't know why I confused the two. We're building a government, and that's the whole hinge point is the implications of okay, they won. They're winning. They've won the Civil War. Of course, they have to get to Jakku to finally win it. But what do we do now? And how do we have to actually be more organized? We can't be so guerrilla. And that that's that tension. That's why Leia has to kind of give way to Mon Mothma and come under her wing some more. And so we are seeing that, but we're not seeing it so much articulated as a program that Mon Mothma upholds, although I'm sure she could. She has to have been able to. But we're seeing the story gradually, bits and pieces of it unfolding. I wonder what From the Ashes means. I wonder if that third book in The Raid of the Empire is set after Endor, and if that's a part of this, if that's what that means, unless it means From the Ashes of Alderaan, which is also possible. But
that'd be fun.
Yeah. So there. So on screen, we don't have too much. But I think there's more opportunity in the books because they're thicker. More time to go into things like that. All right, kind of quickly, because we want to dive into our main topic, but I want to talk a bit, kind of comedically, but a little bit, about Vader and Barney Stinson and the villain's journey, and also Marta and Thanos. So my favorite sitcom of all time is How I Met Your Mother, and recently I'm on my fourth rewatch of How I Met Your Mother because I'm watching How We Made Your Mother, the kind of look back podcast with Josh Radnor and Craig Simpson, I believe his name, who was one of the writers, showrunners. And oddly enough, and now I can't unsee it, but I can see it. This is a bit of a spoiler for season 1, which came out in 2006. So too bad. Barney Stinson's origin story, directly modeled off of Darth Vader's origin story. That moment where I just got to that episode, and this hit Star Wars news when that podcast aired, maybe kind of early July, I think. And I was like, I can't unsee it now. It's explicitly, it aired in January 2006, I think, January, February, around there, which is what, 7-8 months after Revenge of the Sith hits theaters in May of 2005.
Should be.
Yeah, so definitely in the zeitgeist, and this explicit framing of Barney coming up on the table, and he's in the black suit, and the music is channeling John Williams, even if it isn't explicitly, although that would have been too on the nose. I'm glad they didn't do that. But yeah, this whole this tragic character who's lost everything to the Empire, and he becomes part of the man, right? He becomes trying to be the man, trying to be the Empire. So I love that. I just love that my favorite film of all time, my favorite sitcom of all time, have this synergy together with my favorite character of all time, Anakin Vader. Also, reflecting on, so last night I mentioned, Chris and I were talking about High Republic. Mm-hmm. Phase 2 is primarily, who's the main character of Phase 2? I think it's Marta Rowe. The villain's journey.
I say Marcion is the main character of the whole thing. I think it's Marcion's story.
Well, there's that part of it, that's a villain's journey. Mm-hmm. It's just, of course, spoiler alert, he fails in the end. I think with Marta, it's more definitive in that she succeeds in becoming this villain, becoming this formidable, sharp-toothed, literally and otherwise character, going from this really flowery, innocent girl.
She's Morgana from King Arthur stories.
Okay, that's a good reference. I need to look that up. I don't know it well enough. But yeah, there's something fascinating again about the villain's journey and how it's a parody of the hero's journey. It makes us feel things a lot like the hero's journey, but yeah, it's definitely just an exciting arc to watch. With Vader and with Barney, you want to see the redemption. Of course, with Barney, you sort of see it. With Anakin, you kind of do, kind of don't. That remains to be seen. But anyway, nothing too deep, nothing as deep as your topic. But just want to shout out How I Made Your Mother and How I Met Your Mother, the show. And yeah, this connection to my favorite film of all time. So I don't know if have you seen How I Met Your Mother? Have you seen any of it?
Nah, it's
Okay.
too long. I can't handle long shows anymore. I'm getting old.
They're 22-minute episodes.
I know, but it's like
Yeah.
100. So many
Yeah.
seasons.
9
Back when TV
seasons.
was
It's true.
TV.
Okay.
Just
Just
nice.
get up to just watch episode 15. I think it's
Oh,
episode 15.
okay. I'll give it. I
That's
don't know if
that's
I
it.
have it. I don't know which streaming series. I don't
It's
know
on
what
Disney
series.
Plus. It's on Disney
Oh,
Plus.
okay, nice. Is it Hulu though, or is it on actual Disney Plus proper?
Probably Hulu for you.
I dang, I don't have the
Um,
Hulu. I just have Disney Plus regular.
yeah. Maybe I don't know. We'll wait to find out. So, but what do you think about the villain's journey?
Oh, I mean, I've always been someone who says that. I mean, to me, it's sort of like is the who is the protagonist of any story, really? Vader's the villain, but he's the protagonist of the 6 films combined.
Yeah.
Thanos is I said that there's a good argument to be made that Thanos is the protagonist of Infinity War at the very least. I think Marcion Rowe is the main protagonist of the High Republic initiative in a grand sense.
Interesting.
At least
Yeah.
that's my take on that. So yeah, I mean, even Kylo Ren was going to have a villain's journey, pretty much. He's talked about that.
Mhm.
I mean, Adam Driver talked about that. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely uh that sort of storyline there for
Mhm.
sure. It's always interesting, like what counts as like a villain's journey or not, or when
Yeah.
a character is just very prominent. Like here's a
Mhm.
weird thought. I actually don't like. I don't think like say the original Thrawn trilogy, as much as we call it the Thrawn trilogy, and I think so much the
Mhm.
attention's on Thrawn these days.
Yeah.
I actually don't think he's got a villain's journey or is even the main protagonist. I just think he just is like a standout character that we all
Mhm.
fell in love with. That we just pay attention to him. But when you
Mhm.
actually like analyze the book, it's like, no, he's just a good antagonist, and
Mhm.
it's still very much Luke and Mara who are kind of our main
Yeah.
stars.
That's true. Yeah.
It's not really until you get to the actual Thrawn books in later
Mhm.
years where Thrawn kind of starts sucking the energy both in the narrative and away and out of it as well.
I mean,
Um,
he's a character you want to cheer for.
yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, I definitely found Dylan's journey very interesting. It's always
Mhm.
interesting, like though, and again, I think it's always interesting where you get a very charismatic villain that you kind of wonder, is he the main protagonist of the story, or
Mhm.
are we just really invested in him? And I think it's always interesting to discern when it is and when it isn't that. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I like that. So,
Yeah.
good connection there.
Anyway, let's pick up some comments, some great comments in the chat, some not great comments in the chat. That's why I got distracted, but dealt with that. Here we go. No squeaky clean, squeaky clean record. No Tuscan skeletons in the closet. Not at all. Not at all.
Totally.
That's the birth of Darth Vader in this film, right? Attack of the Clones. Endor diversity. Yeah, with Rose, I mean, yeah, they haven't on the films, especially the sequel trilogy. Yeah, I agree. It didn't kind of got into the diversity for its own sake kind of thing.
I mean, that's TFA when you really think about it. Like, I
Yeah.
kind of don't agree with anybody who says TFA is a feminist film. Not really. But hey, it wasn't written by women, written by 2 guys.
Yeah. I mean, it introduces her. I mean, but here's Din's main comment here. Good to see you, Din. The problem with Star Wars, where it's going in the universe, in universe politics, same as in the real world, no one knows what's going on inside them, so they have no idea what to create externally. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from there, in that we kind of project. Maybe what you're getting at. We project our own, or trying to evade our own sense of place in the world and try and stamp it out, or try and assert it with this kind of negative liberty. Whereas, I mean, creativity. That's the thing. Creativity is so hard. You have to look inside yourself. You have to look at what you find meaningful, and that's why, yeah, maybe that's what you're getting at, Din, is people struggle to really actually create something new because they struggle to look inside themselves and just want to say, leave me alone to do what I want. And I think Donald Trump, frankly, is the final solution to that. He's the end goal of saying, leave me alone to do what I want. And it's just the loudest voice. So yeah, it's an interesting thought. I'm gonna have to think about this one a little more. And maybe chat about it with you, Dan, a little more. But yeah, I appreciate
Well, I
that
mean, at
thought.
the end of the day, it's the limitation of Star Wars, right? Like,
Yeah,
I just say, if you want something deeper, folks, there's other art that we can watch.
true.
You know, if you want Star Wars to be something it's not, either make something new or try, or maybe there's something else out there. It's like all the people who like really wish everything were Andor. It's like, well, you got the Expanse. I hear the
True.
Expanse is really good. It's got 5 seasons. That's a whole 5 seasons.
Yeah, it's a great show.
TV back when it was more than 2 seasons. Shocker, I know.
Back when they gave shows a chance to mature and develop. Who knew?
I know.
Yeah.
TV is dead. TV is dead. Well, I guess we can get to art now, shall we?
Yeah. So on that note,
Art, not just Star Wars, but also
yeah.
Star Wars.
Mhm.
So yeah, the Lucas Museum. So as we all know, in San Diego Comic-Con, the maker himself, George Lucas, appeared along with Guillermo Del Toro and Doug Chiang, moderated by Queen Latifah of all people. I'm not much of a Queen Latifah person, but that was kind of funny. Talk about the museum and the art and all that sort of thing. So I'm just gonna off the bat. I'll start with this. I'm really excited for this museum. Because it's in Los Angeles, so that means I'm like an hour away. Out there, everyone out there.
I know.
I know. But also just everything I hear about it. This sounds like the museum for nerds. And I say that in like the best possible way. Now,
Are you a nerd, Joel? Are you on YouTube talking about Star Wars?
I know. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like if I got a chance to go to the Louvre or anything like that, I'd be like geeking out too. Because like, oh my god, I'm in Paris and I could see like the what's the famous painting of the Louvre? Shoot,
Mona Lisa.
The Mona Lisa.
Yeah,
I forget that. The Mona Lisa and all that other stuff too. So that's cool. But like, this seems like the museum for like pop culture, geeky nerds. Like there's gonna be comics and obviously Flash Gordon stuff. Like, no one who remembers Flash Gordon. Like that seriously. Like who actually remembers Flash Gordon unless you're like a hardcore Star Wars fan? I mean, Star Wars is a ripoff of Flash Gordon, so in the best way possible. I mean, when you really break down to it, George Lucas like, oh dang, they won't give me Flash Gordon. I'll make my own Flash Gordon. Wish more people would have that attitude of like, I don't get to do a Star Wars, I'll make my own Star Wars. That's how Star Wars was made. George Lucas was like, I'll do my own version of this thing. Great. So there was that. All this sorts of stuff. Like, I really think that this museum is going to be a museum for things that have always been kind of looked down upon. Still, in some ways, kind of always looked down upon from the artsy, fartsy cinema film folk out there. Like even like that one guy who the meme of cinema is always talking about. Robert De Niro, not Robert De Niro.
Robert Downey Jr. No,
not Robert Downey Jr. Well, he's Iron Man. He wouldn't do that. No, it's the director guy.
Who
also makes mob movies.
Yeah. Forget I'm blanking on his name too.
He did Taxi Driver or something.
Yeah. Didn't help us out.
But they're kind of always kind of
easy help us out.
You always look down upon that sort of thing, and like
not Quentin Tarantino, the other one.
Yeah. He did that movie about the city.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, and like stuff that's just always been kind of looked down upon for like so long.
Yeah.
And I think it's nice to get its own museum, and I guess it should be George Lucas because he's right now the world's richest capitalist nerd. So at least he's doing something with his money.
Yeah, there we go.
So I'm excited for it. Matthew, I'll toss this to you.
Yeah.
What's your overall hype right now for this museum?
My hype is, hype might be the wrong word. Interestingly enough, my intrigue, my interest, especially at being in that panel, in that room. I didn't quite expect it to go that deep, that panel. And so, I think, going to that museum, it's going to be a matter of you get out what you put in. If you go in there, be like, oh, that's a cool drawing. Oh, that's a cool artifact. That's cool. This, that, and the other. Okay, you'll enjoy it. but maybe you'll inadvertently,
Martin
subconsciously.
Scorsese. I'm sorry, that's who.
Martin Scorsese, that guy, yeah, which was, yeah, there we go. Yeah, who great. I mean, one of the greatest of all time, of course. But anyway, if you go to, maybe you'll inadvertently, subconsciously experience what Lucas and his wife and blanking on her name, sorry, um, and Del Toro and them and Doug Chiang want you to experience. But if you go into it thinking, what is art? How does it affect us? How does it bind us together or divide us? I think you're gonna really come through, almost maybe changed. Like they're kind of hyping this up as a bit of a spiritual experience, this museum. And so, I mean, I wasn't expecting the panel to get that deep, but just to say, I was in the second row of Hall H, listening to George Lucas tell us what art means, and I'm still like, wow, that happened. I it was a blur. Again, it was a blur. I didn't really couldn't pay attention enough because it was a blur. Because San Diego Comic-Con is wild, but yeah, it's really I'm really excited and intrigued. That's the problem, like you said, like you implied. I'm on the other side of the continent. I want to actually be able to go to this thing. When's the next time? Am I going to be able to make it to Celebration 2027? So that's the thing. If it was in Chicago, like it was going to be, hopefully it would be. Hopefully it would be easier for me to get to. But yeah, and so yeah, well, sorry, just looking at the comments here. That's fun too. Yeah, so I guess hype isn't the right word, but just this could be something really different. We see even the reactions to the panel. Star Wars accounts that don't always delve deep into the meaning of Star Wars, into the meaning of art. We're sharing quotes from the maker himself about this, which we'll dive into. So I'm looking forward. I'm excited that's actually happening. It's actually getting built. I drove by it, or was driven by it rather, a few times. Nice. Yeah, it's an amazing building. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, but really, yeah, enjoying it. So, oh yeah, and of course, Daisy on the other side of the world. You're right.
Oh yeah,
sorry.
All right, Daisy, you gotta travel halfway around the world.
Yeah, there we go. Right. Yeah, interesting. Another comment here about documentaries. Yeah, spiritual experience. Also, I remember this documentary about the Sagrada Familia that was trying to be a bit more diverse, by the way. And yeah, I was looking at just the building itself being a spiritual experience. So yeah.
I mean, I'll just, because so when I was doing the notes, I kind of picked certain things that they said. Sometimes it's a blur for me too still. So hopefully we'll still have a good discussion anyway. We spent an hour talking about something else. But one thing I think that George said, and I think it's very George, he says this, and I think it's simplistic in its almost oversimplistic way. Which I love, which is very interesting. George kind of just broke it down and said, well, art's supposed to give you an emotional connection. And if it doesn't, well, you move on to the next one. I feel like you can apply that just to all Star Wars, right? Like you read a Star Wars book, watch a Star Wars movie, does it give you an emotional connection? Yes, great. Not, And you know what? Everyone's got different, people don't, to this day, people still don't have emotional connections to the prequels. People have high emotional connections to the sequels. Some people, I don't even have that much of an emotional connection to A New Hope, compared to say Phantom Menace or Revenge of the Sith or Rogue One. I got a big emotional connection to Rogue One there. And I don't know. I just think that's like the kind of the most chill. That's what I like about George. He's very chillax in that weird way, which is weird because he also hears he's very gets stressed easily. So he's very, but it's sort of like, it just gives you emotional connection. If you that's great, doesn't, oh well. Who are you to say? Who are you to say what should
move on to the next piece, right?
Right. It's sort of like I took an art class, and it's sort of like this one artist dude, like in the 1900s, who was like trying to challenge a lot of the artsy guys of his time was like, here's a picture of an upside down toilet, and I wrote my name on it. Is it art? And they all failed his test because they all said no.
Andy Warhol or someone like a predecessor to Andy Warhol.
So yeah, predecessor to Andy Warhol because it was 1900s before the First World War.
He was earlier, yeah. He was later, rather.
Yeah. And then it's like, well, yeah, it's just an upside down toilet, but as far as I'm concerned, that's art. You know, and I think that was also when photography was also kind of in the mix of like, is this art or not?
Yeah.
But I like George's very chillax way of expressing it, because I just think, yeah, I mean, that's how you feel about Star Wars. Is like, did the Star Wars story give you a connection? Yes or no? Move on. All right, and it's like, well, not every, you know, like you can have, you know, like if you have a bunch of your friends together, they might be emotionally connected to one Star Wars movie over the other. So there we go. I just applied something George said to art about Star Wars.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and it puts some. I'm retroactively claiming that's what my inadvertent meme photo is about. It's him looking at these debates that we have. You know, I think I've said this on this podcast, I've said this other places, but you know, we try and have these debates and try and appeal to some objective standard. Now, there are ways of appealing to objective standards, right?
We can talk about something Del Toro says, which I actually want to say a little devil's
but
advocate about.
I want to harp on this whole point about emotional connection. You know, harp on these objective standards and you know, about making these debates and digging in on these debates about, you know, Luke wouldn't do this. You know, the Jar Jar is objectively annoying. Go figure that.
Palpatine the clone now? What's going on?
You know, all those things. And you know, it's because we just struggle with saying, maybe this is also related to what David was getting at with the lack of looking inside. We just struggle with saying, you know what, I didn't connect with this thing, and that letting that be good enough, right? That's not good enough somehow. And that's the thing, is art is meant to have this visceral reaction. So maybe folks going through the museum, maybe I'm wrong, maybe folks going through the museum are going to have this visceral experience that they can't entirely articulate. But yeah, that's this amazing thing. And they were both Lucas, Del Toro were all picking up on this theme of, specifically in the museum, if you're looking at something and you don't connect with it, just go to the next thing. And even talking about this Queen Latifah, who is a huge nerd apparently.
Yeah, and her mom's an art teacher, which I found.
Yeah, her mom's an art teacher. It was great. Picking up on the Mobius strip structure of the building. And this is a really fascinating point in that, you know, there's no kind of right answer of where you're supposed to stop and be. You know, you if you don't like it, you're about to experience it. If something hits you, then it hits you. I mean, there's emotions are a form of truth, right? You can't argue someone into another feeling. And I'll give us an example. This isn't a museum. It was a museum. It isn't an art museum, but it's the Holocaust Memorial in DC. And I remember this incredibly telling moment. I'm kind of getting emotional about it now. You know, a lot of it, yeah, it's a very obviously moving museum. But this was, I forget when this was, maybe 2008, 2009. And walking around, you know, my own family history coming out of the Holocaust, and you know, that were, you know, little did I know that we'd be seeing this literally happening in the United States from this very city, you know, a number of years later. But walking around, and you know, I was affected a little bit, maybe being primed, but never really impacted until I came upon a photo of a toddler, of a maybe 1 or 2 year old boy, just standing there, knowing he was murdered by the Nazis. And then I had to sit down and I started bawling, because you know, how the little kids are pure humanity, right? And the impact of that much evil trying to stamp out that pure humanity, the pure human soul is so it hopefully there's something in
hopefully,
that.
I mean, obviously, having an
Yeah.
emotional reaction to visiting that museum, or a friend of mine who visited Auschwitz,
Yeah.
hopefully you have an emotional reaction. Otherwise, I'd be very
Yeah.
concerned. No, it's
Yeah.
very different than saying I don't like the Star Wars movie.
Well, yeah, but I guess my point being, well, now we're trying to argue that in Florida and in Gaza, we have to argue that this is the same kind of thing. There's Din's coming here, but at some point, I mean, well, this is another thing, and this is getting to the politics of it, right? And this is really kind of what George is getting at. Maybe we'll get into it further a little down, but I know there's no argument, and maybe my point, maybe your point too, is that, I know people who aren't going to be convinced that people in the U.S. just trying to make their way through the immigration process, but are here, are undocumented, but they're making their way through the immigration process. They're doing everything right now, and they're the ones being disappeared. And it takes these people sharing these personal individual stories for people to actually connect and believe that it's happening. So again, that's the power of storytelling. That's the power of myth, not in the sense of myth. We know what we mean by myth. We don't mean it's mythical, not unreal, but a deeply meaningful story. And I mean, the Bible's like that. A lot of sacred texts are about that. And so I mean, to kind of bring it, I know it seems kind of trivial. I think we're getting it trying to talk about Star Wars this way, but also, yeah, you're right. It's if you don't like The Last Jedi, okay. If you don't like The Rise of Skywalker, no, but just say, oh, this didn't connect with me, and move on. It's fine. And we should also be able to make space for those, right?
Yeah.
Maybe to say it's helpful to say, okay, this is. But also, maybe it's helpful to say this is why this doesn't connect with me, and be able to articulate that. But again, that requires you to look inside yourself. Oh, okay, I expected Luke to do this or whatever. So, anyway, so go ahead.
I mean, there's a few things I want to kind of break down with that. One, I feel like sometimes I feel like there's especially in nerd spaces, when you're a part of the fandom, there's like a want to be intellectual about it, and like, have like some deep intellectual reason why you did or did not connect to this. And I think human beings are contradictory creatures that don't make any goddamn sense. It's like,
that's true too.
especially in this country. Like, I hate to say it. Like, you can meet someone who's like, I am pro LGBTQ rights, and I believe in the freedom of abortion and whatnot, and like, I also believe we should invade this country and take and occupy them because something. Or it's like, or the opposite. It's the dumb, socially conservative, fiscally liberal kind of BS kind of stuff. But there is truth to that, where it's like, where they're like, for some reason they don't like, minorities, unfortunately. And then it's like, but then you tell them about like, hey, what about grocery stores owned by workers and you get cheaper food? And they're like, heck yeah, I'll vote for that.
Oh yeah. Other people are like, that's socialism.
But if you don't tell it social, but then if you don't tell them like that, and you hear the actual thing, they're like, "Oh, I like that idea." So it's the contradictory weirdness of stuff. Like I'll be honest. Like I got that was not maybe not my. I mean, I try not to be that politically, but like with Star Wars, I'm like that all the time. Where like I'm just weirdly contradictory. Like, reason why I love Rise of Skywalker so much, it's basically Dark Empire, the comic book. I don't care what you say. That's Dark Empire, the comic book. Dark Empire is my favorite story in Legends. 10 out of 10. Palpatine clones, let's go. I don't think I've ever not connected to a Star Wars before. I've always enjoyed all of them.
Kind of
Trying
over here. Yeah, a little
I mean,
bit.
maybe Mando season 3 is probably still my least favorite. Even then, that's got some really good episodes.
Hmm.
Um,
And I did connect with that season.
right. I mean,
You know,
that's your favorite season, I think. Maybe.
no, I think I like season 2 better. But
Me too. Okay, I guess we're on the same page now again.
but one of my favorite episodes is the most ridiculous, the Lizzo Jack Black episode. I connected with that because it's hilarious, ridiculous,
Who
and
doesn't
so
love
much bright.
Lizzo and Jack Black?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, you know, um, or like when I say I prefer canon over legends, I kind of don't have like an intellectual, objective reason for it.
yeah.
I don't know. I just vibe with it more. Um,
Hmm.
and to be fair, I haven't read a lot of it, so maybe there's some unfairness there. But like as of now, it's like, well, that's where I want to put my energies.
Yeah,
Um, you know, so there's it's contradictions and weirdness, and it's like I don't know. Like, and I feel like we try to justify. I think just trying to in the real world justifying your racism or bigotry is wrong, and
yeah,
that's a whole other thing. But justifying saying like I don't know, like I don't like Andor. I don't think you need to justify it. Like I watched it,
yeah.
didn't really care for it.
Hmm.
I don't, I just felt this and that. And if you try it again, if you still don't like it, well, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
You know, um, fair enough. Like I don't think you really need to have like a deep intellectual argument about it. Just
Hmm.
go for it, or
Yeah.
don't go for it. I guess.
I think I want to pick two things. Is that people want to have an intellectual argument? I think there's two parts to that. One is, unfortunately, it's not so much they want an intellectual argument. People want to be right. They want to say, "Oh, I'm
Oh,
right."
absolutely.
Objective. I'm just right. Want to win the argument and have struggle with difference. There's that being said, there's also a difference between justifying and just being able to articulate something,
Right.
right? Um, you know, in saying Nintendo season 3, like that episode, so George Lucas that episode, right?
And people don't like George Lucas as an artist. Maybe not like in a he
Yeah,
sucks. I mean sometimes there's a lot of it, but like people just don't vibe with his vibe.
yeah,
And that's always been the case.
or because it's funny,
That's
you
it.
know.
Some people don't.
I mean, How I Met Your Mother is both incredibly deep and incredibly hilarious. It's a sitcom, like
That's true.
so. Yeah, there you go.
But I mean, when I say they don't vibe with his vibe, I'm not. This is
Yeah,
the problem with the internet and how the internet just made everything just so horrible.
yeah, that's true.
Like I feel like I'm about to turn this on its head a little bit.
Mhm.
I've always had a bit of a problem with prequel defensism because it's just a reverberation of prequel attackism, where now like these two extremes have kind of come, where it's sort of like people didn't like the prequels, but they did it in such an extreme way that like, well, you're overboarding it now. Like, just say you don't like them. You don't have to go all the way to like curses to the George of blah blah blah
Well,
blah blah,
yeah,
all that stuff. And now it's sort of like, no, the prequels are perfect. I won't have an intellectual argument about this.
right.
I will defend everything. And it's like, people just don't vibe with certain artists, regardless. And they're not going to. Hopefully, most people who are mentally stable are not going to go George Lucas bleep 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 bleep. It's like I didn't
Mhm.
like those movies.
Yeah,
You can tell me why they're good. I just don't. Not for me. Sorry. And then
yeah,
you move on.
yeah,
And I think that's like the healthiest thing you can ever do.
mhm, yeah,
And obviously, people like myself and you, Matthew, and Jim, we all we vibe with those movies, of course.
yeah,
So when Jim says that's the most George Lucas, I agree. But also, some people just don't like George as an artist. They don't like his style, his veneer. They prefer, I don't know, the guy who
Martin
does the Dune
Scorsese
movie, Martin
or
Scorsese, or Peter
Denis Villeneuve.
Jackson,
Yeah,
or Guillermo Del Toro.
yeah,
Sometimes
yeah,
although I'm sure Guillermo Del Toro loves George because he's on the board.
yeah,
So, but you know what I mean, right? Like as individual artists.
yeah. Again, what was I gonna say? What was I gonna say? Yeah, I
I
forgot.
derailed a little bit. I'm sorry.
Again, no, it's okay. Again, I was gonna say something about art and objectivity. I mean, I do want to get into if you have a comment or question or whatever about uh the collective power of myth and drawing
I
people
don't, but I
together.
have one more little point I want to make, which
Okay.
I want to do a little bit of weird devil's advocate.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh no, this one, I know what I was gonna say. I was gonna say.
Okay.
Took me a second.
You say your thing, and I'll do my thing.
Second time I've gotten there. There we go. You know, that's the thing about, say, me being wearing this T-shirt. Mm-hmm. I guess it requires me to say, there we go. Girls are just girls. It requires me to say, yeah, I know the dialogue is clunky. I know, and with Revenge of the Sith, I know Padme kind of gets sidelined in Revenge of the Sith. I know that, and I respect that that affects people and affects people's reception of it. You know, just even similar to say, I respected why people Canadians didn't want to travel to the US. You know, I get that. I just didn't have that compunction in the same way. I agree with the reasons. I also had other reasons to want to go to San Diego Comic-Con, so I did. And you know, the people who respect me may have not gone are going to respect that too. You know, the ability to see, again, and you'll probably hopefully appreciate this, the ability to see in another person's shoes, to see what this other person sees and cares about and how that person feels. I mean, that's called compassion, right? Mm-hmm. This intentional, it's not just empathy. Actually, I had a therapist tell me empathy is this autonomic response that isn't as valuable as compassion, which is this intentional choice to work to understand what another person's experience. Mm-hmm. And so maybe that's the thing with these trying to justify, is to say, my experience needs to be right and your experience needs to be wrong, mm-hmm. in order for my experience to continue and to exist. And of course that's terrible and problematic, because both people can get can experience both things at the same time. And that's the thing about art, right?
Right. I want to do, can I do my devil's advocate now thing?
I think one more last thing I wanted to say is that yeah, that it requires me, if I say I love it, requires me to, again, acknowledge the contradictions. And that's we get to your point about how we're just inherently contradictory and selective, and feelings and emotional reaction to this is selective. And
we're not Vulcans, people.
Well, even Vulcans are selective, especially in their emotions. Sure. You know, but yeah, to say okay, and to have the courage, and I'm kind of patting myself in the back a little bit, the courage to say, to own the fact that yes, these things may be factually true, or other people experience them, like the dialogue in Attack of the Clones, mm-hmm. but it just doesn't matter as much to me. I experience it as Italian opera, truly deeply love you. I love that line. If you think about, and John Williams set that up so wonderfully, you know, I can objectively say, yeah, he's working in 19th century chromatic harmony and orchestration. You can point to these things about music that I know, and melodic contour, to remind us that yeah, they might as well be singing a duet there, and they might have been in a stage in wherever Verdi was in Venice. I guess nice. Yeah, the La Scala in Venice, right? That's where he was. So
Abu is the Italy of Star Wars.
Yeah, so having that experience, but not everyone not everyone has a music degree and listen to Verdi. You know, so there's that too. But yeah. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, devil's advocate. Go for it.
I agree. So I'm just gonna say, I do agree with when Guillermo Del Toro was talking. Hey, I just want to say right now, Guillermo Del Toro actually was my favorite panelist of all three of them.
He really honed in. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's some, I don't know. I mean, like, I guess, you know, some of it just, I listen to George Lucas so often. It's like I feel like I'm just hearing the same good hits. Or Guillermo del Toro, I don't really pay attention to him that much, but like he's always on it. And he was talking about AI art and how terrible that is, and he's probably correct on that 100%. But I honestly, to kind of go with George Lucas's view for a hot second, what happens if someone you showed AI art and they did have an emotional reaction to it? What do we do? Like, I generally kind of feel like that there's the one kind of flaw in the logic. At least maybe what I was listening to. Like, again, I am not pro AI art in any way, shape, or form. God help us all. But if you show some just random schmuck in the streets or that
random schmo, hopefully not something else.
Random schmo,
yeah,
and they had a reaction,
yeah,
I don't know what to do. Even if it's an angry reaction, because actually, here's something. Sorry, I'm going all over the place, but this is this discussion.
yeah.
I always feel like the best, like if anger to me, I'd rather walk out of the movie angry, than meh. And here's why.
Yeah.
I don't like Batman versus Superman. That's a legit movie I hate. I hate that movie so much. I do not like that movie. I think that movie is dumb. I think that movie is the worst thing ever, and it did destroy a studio.
Martha.
I know, among other things, and killing Superman at the end. I walked out of that movie going, "Oh, this is dumb."
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm still almost in shock by just the weirdness of that film and just the god awfulness of it. Or something like, I don't know, the Suicide Squad, not Suicide Squad, Suicide Squad, the David Ayer one, not the James Gunn one.
Yeah.
I was like, To me, that's worse because, like, I'm never gonna think about this again. I always think about Batman versus Superman every now and then. Never watched it again, but I still think about it. And I guess we haven't hit that point yet, thankfully, where I don't think AR art's ever gonna hopefully get an emotional reaction as someone. But I fear the day it will. Even if, but I'll be fair, maybe we can just say it's because of people who aren't very smart or thinking deeply about it. But I don't know if we're just going with the common man, if they think about get a reaction from it, what do we do? I'm generally trying to think about this because this is something that kind of is sort of making my brain go. I'm just thinking of like the counters here.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not pro AI at all. Just want to make that very clear. I'm just thinking about what would happen.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
Yes. I've had to think about AI for my day job. I guess I didn't have to, but when the Pope says, "Oh yeah, I chose this name because of the threats to AI on labor and peace and justice."
My new empire, my new Catholic church.
No, but the threats that it has to peace and can have to peace and justice. The thing is, it's here to stay. It's a technology that's here to stay, and AI. We're in a Marshall McLuhan would say we're in a symbiotic relationship with it. Yes, we put in the prompts, we put in the parameters and whatnot, and tell it to feed something out. But then we get into the habit of going to it and relying on it, and so
sometimes a little grammar fixing is fine. I will say that.
And I've used ChatGPT quite a bit these days, just to to chase down a hunch or to find a great Facebook group to link up with going to San Diego, and that really helped. But I think the thing is it's here to stay. It's not, we're not going to abolish it. It's probably being involved in literally what we're doing right now on YouTube. And so, the question is, as a technology, the question, I think the real concern, the real worry that we have with lots of sci-fi, especially with Asimov, for example, or not, maybe not Asimov, definitely The Matrix, is it becoming the master? The way it can lead us to habits of thought, and this is what Del Toro is getting at, really, is to lead us to take shortcuts through the experiences, the real life experiences that are required in making meaningful art and saying something meaningful through art. Whereas it's cheaper to just let AI design this thing. Sure, but
I've heard that.
And so that's the problem. I think I'm wondering if that worry is getting exaggerated, though. I wonder if, and again, full disclosure, with my day job, I mean, our graphic designers use AI to at least help touch up images and, you know,
I
kind of
don't think
organize
AI is
some
as
things.
powerful as some of the alarmists always say it is.
Yeah, and
But
it's
I do
also,
think
I
that's
don't
going to
know,
get exploited
frankly.
like heck. And we're going
Yeah,
to have to deal with a few years of like some really sloppy things
yeah.
before it's like, things kind of balance back into equilibrium.
Well, I mean, it is starting to put it like objectively, quality things in terms of just image quality and different things like that, rendering. But again, full disclosure, like I've used ChatGPT for some prompts from ideas and things like that for articles to write. But I think the question is to make sure, while it's still just the computer code, to make sure that it's a servant and not becomes the master. That we continue to, and a servant of being human. And I think this is even what Pope Francis was getting at. And this is why my day job, because uh, the Vatican's been looking at this pretty intensely and taking the lead on this in a lot of ways. To say, let's make sure it's a servant of genuine human connection, human encounter, human meaning, and human experience. But maybe, to Din's point here, to make sure we too are serving our human encounter and human experience, human meaning too, right? And not just in the way we use AI, but in the way we in the way we podcast, the way we use Twitter. Like you said, the internet's made things horrible for similar reasons too, and in the way we make art. That's one of the best line, one of the best lines, if not the best line of the whole panel. I know you'll get to this too. Is
you can't make art with an app. I love Guillermo.
Well, no, that's not the line I was getting at, but there's
I love that line too.
The best line is art unites, propaganda divides. And
I actually have some thoughts on that too, because
in the sense, and this I think, and the whole art unites. I mean, that was really what George is getting at. We kind of touched on it with the conversation about compassion and owning your own emotional reaction and response, rather, and accepting the emotional response of another. But the way it can create collective meaning symbolically, but in a way that, again, serves diversity for the sake of unity, right? Serves our common humanity, serves our sense of the common good, sense of seeing the other in ourselves and ourselves in the other. This quote exactly, to find the common threads that make all people one. Whereas Del Toro talking about propaganda, meaning serving the bottom line, serving the people in power, and it does that often through fear, right?
I actually disagree with Del Toro actually about that. I think all art is propaganda, or a good chunk of it is, because some of the greatest movies of all time are kind of propaganda. What's not Spirited Away? Casablanca. Casablanca.
Yeah.
It's hailed as one of the best movies of the 40s. It's so anti-Nazi World War II propaganda film through and through. Hey, good to be on that side. Am I right? But I mean, it was made by a Jewish man who escaped, so there's that. But he is in some ways putting propaganda against the Nazis, which I mean I'm all for. Just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
With that movie, it's pro-France, anti the Germans. Thank goodness America had those sentiments already. Even a lot of the superhero movies that we all like in some way are not like in a sinister sense.
Yeah.
But I think there's always a thing in the ether about propaganda. One of my favorite movie critics, the movie Bob, went on about how reason why the MCU caught fire, especially that first Iron Man film back in 2008, was it allowed America, who still had a lot of pent up anger after 9/11, because 9/11 messed us up mentally big time, to unleash that anger but now we can kind of feel good about ourselves because Obama was president. So it's like, yeah, the Democrat who's not invading Iraq is going to be punching up the terrorist. And
Right.
through this movie about Tony Stark, who, if you rewatch the first Iron Man movie, remember he's in Afghanistan. He
Right.
gets captured by not the Taliban, the Ten Rings, who are pretty
Right.
much your Taliban Al Qaeda stand-in.
Mhm.
He beats them up and then beats up the CEO guy helping them with
Yeah.
his own mega money.
And when does
It's
the
like
film come out? When
that
does
film
Iron
came
Man?
out in 2008.
2008. What
So,
year? What happened in 2008?
oh, that's a good point. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like during the election, but like Iron
It was
Man
before the
1,
election, I'm sure, but
it probably was. It came out May 2nd.
yeah.
So,
So number of months. It's really
so
primary.
Obama was already kind of on his way. I feel. I think like the
Yeah.
vibe was already there. Um,
Mhm.
of like, you know, uh, hey, and then hey, we get to beat up these terrorists, and then by the time you get to Avengers 2012,
Mhm.
second election, Obama term 2,
Yeah.
Loki is attacking New York City, and the heroes, with the help of the mega CIA Shield, defend the city from foreign
Yeah.
attackers. Again, I think America's trying to get out some pent up issues there. And
Mhm.
a friend of mine, my friend Red, had a thing from who's that famous philosopher in America who's like
John Rawls,
no, he's a leftist philosopher. He's really
not Paul
old.
Krugman.
Noam Chomsky.
Noam
Noam
Chomsky,
Chomsky.
the linguist
That
and philosopher. Yeah.
Yeah, Noam Chomsky. He goes on. Chomsky had a theory about a lot of '90s movies
Mhm.
like Saving Private Ryan and a bunch of those war films where
Yeah.
where apparently his theory was we made those films because America had a lot of pent up violence in it, and we really, really, really wanted an excuse to use that violence, but we couldn't because we're kind of in a bit of a peace in the '90s. And
Mhm.
9/11 was that excuse to finally like, yes, let's unleash some violence. We really want to go to war,
Yeah.
and
Interesting.
Bush used that to great appeal. Thank you. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
but so I kind of disagree a little bit maybe with the divide between art and
Hmm.
propaganda. I do think that there is a state sake. I mean, there's definitely like the extremes, like Triumph
Yeah.
of Deville, which isn't just Nazi propaganda sanctioned by the state,
Right.
but with the way a lot of the big studios anyway have always had connections with the state in some way in America. I mean, Hollywood and the state have always had
Yeah.
a connection. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes you get Spartacus, which was made by the American Communist Party, which is
Interesting.
I guess pro-communist, which is like you can read as pro-communist propaganda.
Mhm.
The Spartacus film from the 50s.
Mhm.
Um, I do think in some ways I kind of disagree with Del Toro because I do think that there isn't as firm a divide as he says there is. I actually
Hmm.
think that maybe not in like a sinister way, but
Yeah.
in a subconscious way. Another example, and then I'll stop. James Bond. What is James Bond but a British spy who works for the government? The
Dun, dun,
British
dun, dun,
government,
dun, dun. Yeah.
fighting Chinese people and Russians. Some of
Mhm.
those countries that used to belong to the good old empire. He's basically
Hmm.
served for queen and country. Um,
Darn right.
serve the British Empire as its super spy.
Mhm.
Um, you can have those reads. Star Wars is obviously a little different. I'll definitely say that because it's a fantasy world, and I don't think
Mhm.
and George is I think very much a little. I definitely think that's definitely on the outs a little bit there.
Mhm.
Star Trek's weirder because Star Trek you can read it sort of like, what if American Empire was good and it worked?
Yeah.
Again, fantasy, but it's also in the real world. Um,
Mhm.
there's definitely that allegory sense, but I do think that the divide is not always as prevalent. I do think some things are less that than others, like a Star Wars, because it's in that such a pure fantasy scape.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, there's definitely things you can read about Lord of the Rings of like, here's the Victorian Englishman talking about the restoration of the
Yeah.
monarchy of Gondor and a
The
little bit
Holy
of
Roman
Charlemagne
Empire
in
and all
there.
that.
All hail Britannia against the East.
Mhm.
Men of the West unite.
Mhm.
So that is honestly
Yeah.
like that is like probably my big divide take of like I don't necessarily agree with Del Toro here on the divide between propaganda and art.
Mm-hmm.
At least in terms of like the agenda, or at least even the subconscious, because I do think it's there, even if it's not sinister. Even if it's not.
So I mean, I just talked about debating, but I guess there's room for debate.
It's fun to debate. I'm not saying we can't debate.
There's room to debate because I'm going to say I think maybe he doesn't go into it too much, but I don't think he means propaganda the way you're using the term propaganda. I do think so. I want to address Din's comment and see what a good representative one here is. Art can't be, putting it out there, your truth, your philosophy, whatnot. I think that being, this is great. Holy propaganda. I mean, all propaganda means in a neutral sense is propagation, right? That it's the same word, to propagate your perspective. And so ideally, yes, everything art that's trying to actually say something is trying to say something, and that's a tautology. But ideally, yeah, what you're getting has a certain point of view, has a perspective, and politics is part of that. I think Daisy makes a good counterpoint here, though, in that, also that we don't notice it. I don't know if Del Toro means it in a neutral sense of having a point of view. I think he has more. He means more in specifically what it's. First of all, he's making a very blanket statement. It's almost a soundbite, but it was a.
Well, you can only say so much in a 40-minute panel.
Yeah,
right?
And it was a very pithy, soundbite in that he's distinguishing art from propaganda based on what its intent is, and I find that fascinating. Maybe you're right. Maybe that is too slippery. Maybe that's too hard to pin down.
It can be.
Maybe that's to say if I agree with it, it's art. If I agree with the perspective, it's art. If I disagree with the perspective, it's propaganda. Maybe that's too slippery.
It can't lead that. I feel like that's a lot of Soviet movies discussion.
But I think what I think what the museum is trying to do and say is, and again, this is picking up what George is getting at mostly. I think primarily, even George and Guillermo and Doug and everybody, and Queen Latifah and Marsha, not Marsha. Oh, what's George? Googling this. George Lucas' wife name.
New wife.
New wife. Melody. Melody.
She was an ABC reporter too.
Melody. Because it's George and Melody. We're doing this together. By the way,
which is sweet.
Yeah. So, So Din helpfully summarizing this for me. Politicians and corporations trying to use fear and use greed and use antagonism to say, it's to my benefit, me corporation who is funding this re-election campaign for so and so. It's in my interest. It makes me a lot of money to get this politician to say, "Oh, those immigrants over there are stealing your jobs." And
I mean, that's definitely propaganda. That is.
Here's this art thing that's saying that, or I don't know. I mean, even I don't know. Maybe there are more subtle.
I mean, there are things like the art of propaganda. It's
I mean, I think part of the difficulty here is, I mean, Hollywood nowadays and artists and art in the left is typically a very left wing, progressive, or at least center left.
It's very liberal.
It's very liberal, which is center left. It's not left. Center left. Story. I mean, that's interesting. Here's a question.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I got a question.
I was disappointed by Falcon and Winter Soldier because it's liberal when it could have been leftist. It could have been more progressive. Is that propaganda, or is it art?
I think
or it's just mediocre art. You know,
I mean, probably New York art is around. I'll say, I think Marvel as a franchise has always had a very liberal. I mean, I talked about this with the whole 08 thing. Has a very,
exactly,
very much. They are. I mean, this is like this very pedantic. All of Marvel has always been the Democratic Party. Their whole thing has always been the Avengers are the super cops. We like the institution, and as long as the good guys are and we are lucky that the super cops are just the nicest people ever. And I think I think Marvel even has always boiled down to. Here's an example. You remember the movie Winter Soldier?
Yeah. Of course.
They never really
one of my
come out.
It's one of the best.
When you really think about it, let's just really kind of break it down. They, especially with later installments, they never really come out against S.H.I.E.L.D., the super CIA.
Right.
The problem with S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't like, oh, Nick Fury's not the problem. It's just that all the secret World War II Nazis infiltrated, and they have the secret brain people in charge. We just got to get rid of them, and then S.H.I.E.L.D's okay again. So it's sort of that, let's just get rid of the bad guys in charge, but the institution is safe. So I would argue...
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other things too. I can go into bigger studies about that. I've sent you some of those tweets before about like kind of the whole MCU ethos of very Obama liberal style politics. It's very much, and that's why it was big at the time. So yeah, I definitely think Marvel as a studio and as sort of the people making it have a very liberal ethos to it. I mean, also Falcon Winter Soldier was also a mess of a movie anyway.
Yeah,
but I also
Captain America 4 similar kind of.
And problem, I do think that has been one of the reasons they've struggled. I think they're trying to get with the times, but I don't think they are trying to get out of that, and they're just struggling, and that's why the reboots happen. So yeah, I think it is art, and maybe also liberally propaganda-y, question mark? Or maybe that's just its viewpoint. It's that liberalism. And as a leftist, unfortunately, we kind of have to just deal with it.
Yeah, I guess the question is...
Sorry, that's my dad.
No, yeah, I'm just trying to understand what Del Toro means by propaganda then. I'm not. I don't know if he means what you think he means. I don't think he. I mean, clearly he's not using it in a neutral way. And it seems like you are.
I get what he means in the sense of like
the folks who are controlling the algorithms, right?
Something like that. It's stuff like that. When Nazis propaganda talking about how these people are horrible, we should eliminate them all. I get that. I think that's in his head what he's talking about. Where I kind of, because I'm the lefty who looks kind of at society, is like, yeah, I mean, art in general kind of has a view that can propagate if we're using the word.
Well, yeah, it has to, right?
So,
I think maybe he's talking about maybe Fox News and the way headlines.
I think
and
that's
Facebook news feeds. And so. It's just, it's interesting. Again, maybe I'll say this. You give me food for thought to reflect on this, right? Is it too easy to say, if I agree with it, it's art. If I disagree with it, it's propaganda? Maybe Del Toro has more to say about that. I'm sure he does.
I mean, there's always talk about like culturally and how we portray things. Like, watch movies from a certain time. Like, here's a great example, Matthew. Watch American movies. And watch how they depict the military. Or, you know what? I'm sorry to do this to you, Matthew. But I have to do it.
Okay.
Let's talk about the West Wing. That's very liberal. That is the epitome of 90s liberalism, right? Like,
no, you know what it is?
What?
That's a fantasy. And this brings me back to Star Wars.
Liberal fantasy, but fantasy.
The West Wing is so ridiculously impossible. Might as well be Star Wars. Well, I guess it's more like Star Trek in that way, but
right? But I think
I completely agree. It's yeah.
Or again,
you get House of Cards, which is the other extreme. Yeah,
the dark fantasy. But here's a better example. Look at when a movie was made, and look at how they depict like the U.S. military. If the military is like the best heroic, or like in the 90s, how like them dang politicians just send in the army. The generals know what they're doing. That kind of says something about a culture and a society where it's our politicians, they suck. Our military, heck yeah, they're pure and clean, man. They don't do anything wrong.
And the businessmen that want to support them.
I mean, Elon Musk was in Iron Man 2 as Tony Stark's friend. Kind of, or
that was before we knew who Elon Musk was, but
or in Star Trek where he was up there with the greats.
That's true. Oh, that aged like sour milk.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But I think you're probably right. I think everyone's right about like Del Toro probably saying propaganda, not in the way I think of it.
Yeah.
But again, you can't get in super deep with a 40-minute panel. You get like a 3-hour discussion.
So, on that note, I do want to delve into again. I think for me the big takeaway. We've kind of danced around this, and I mentioned a little bit. For me, the big takeaway isn't so much the propaganda divides part, but the art unites part.
Mm-hmm.
Because both George and Guillermo were saying, yes, no, I'm not on a first name basis with them, but it's easier that way. That art, and especially narrative art, maybe I mentioned this last week, but the way that there can be drivers of collective meaning. And so what's important to know there then is the artist is more powerful than we give them credit for. It's why it's important to teach art in school. It's important to fund arts programs and art programs. And so narrative art, the way art, visual design, cue Doug Chiang here, tells a story. And Ian McKay also talking about this at the publishing panel about the High Republic. How comics, painting, even rock music, popular art, especially. Was Del Toro, was Lucas, one of them mentioned the kind of the rock museum or American rock and roll. It was Del Toro. He's saying if we just had classical music, and there wasn't the rock and roll music museum in Cleveland, and the sense that this is such a profoundly important art form in our culture, we'd be missing out on the sense of how important this art form is to the way it can gather people together, right? Then you know this, the way a concert can gather people together. But even to say, my favorite, we're looking out for clowning for the next day or so. Is she going to release a new album or announce something? There's a bit of hero worship there, or a lot of hero worship, but also, okay, she's able to connect with people. And so it's the art unites part. And I think, and what's really fascinating to me is the way it's going to be structured and organized, and how it's conceived of as a temple to popular art. It's saying comics and Norman Rockwell paintings and probably Andy Warhol and Doug Chiang's Pod Racer and Detective Comics #1 or whatever it is, and Flash Gordon. Hopefully there's a music section there too, even though there's, again, the museum in Cleveland. They have ways of tapping into these deep mythic pillars of our own society, for good and for ill. So there's going to be a section on love, a section on family, a section on work, and just how our culture has expressed that. Artists of our culture, at least, have expressed that. I think hopefully both realistically in the way things are, and ideally in the way things ought to be.
Right.
And forging the emotional connections, and it's those pillars, right? Those things that we've all experienced in different ways, positive and negative. We've all experienced love, family, and work in different ways, positive and negative. It's called being human. The way we are in our culture, our Western culture, has done that. And so, I mean, I think getting back to what we were getting at before, the purpose of this museum is to here's the quote. I missaid the quote. It's okay. Myth unites,
right?
Propaganda divides. Myth unites. And so, all art is telling a myth of some sort, in the sense of a story.
Well, that gets into another string of, like, is myth propaganda? Because in some ways, is it the story of our country?
Right. So
The American myth.
Myth being, again, getting into myth in terms of a story about meaning, right? Genesis 1 to 8. I mean, Genesis to Deuteronomy is a story about meaning, right? Specific, but Genesis 1, for example, Adam and Eve in the garden. Most folks don't really believe that literally. Only some of the loudest voices do, but a story about meaning. So I mean, no wonder there's going to be cave drawings, right? How did they express meaning? And so I think with his Del Toro's quote here, he's focusing on the democratization and how. So here's the thing. Maybe this is to the point: is that popular art is so consistently liberal and then progressive because it's moving to the democratization. By definition, it's popular art, right? It's not elite art. It's not meant to be trying to be elite art. It's high quality, high effort, obviously, but that it's popular art. George talking about how he would go to the comic book store or the convenience store rather before comic book stores existed. Actually, comic book stores actually, as much as I push them on Tractor Beam, they started off at least as kind of elite sequestering of the comic book medium. They used to be in convenience stores and grocery stores or whatever, and they sometimes still
you could get them in papers and
and so George picking it up for a nickel when he's a kid, taking it home, right? And so he's sharing his collection because he's been inspired by the way that this popular art has given a sense of meaning in a hopefully democratic society. He conceived of this before. I mean, I guess while things were starting to go off the rails, but now, and I don't just mean Trump eroding democratic norms. I mean Trump eroding democratic norms, and so the response, even though I agree with that response often, is to just dismiss people, right? Didn't get his point all the way back up here. I can't find it, but Trump being a child of God, and the way we now dismiss people because they disagree with us or because they're profoundly wrong, as opposed to when I in New York Comic Con, I remember this, Todd Stashwick, who plays Captain in Picard. I forget the Captain No.
Captain No.
And he basically dead naming Seven of Nine, and and here's Todd Stashwick, of course, portraying and not agreeing with that perspective, but there's a character who was at Wolf 359. I know I'm going to Star Trek here, but it's important. Trust me. Character who was at Wolf 359. He has seen the Borg firsthand and how evil they are and how terrible they can be, and it's affected his psyche, his soul, and so clearly he's going to be unable to see how a Borg defined identity could be a good thing. And what I asked him at New York Comic Con, what do we do? How do we respond to the uncle at the Christmas table, the Thanksgiving table, who just spews all that nonsense, right? And he said, show compassion and curiosity to them too. There's a reason why people react a certain way. The reason why they go to that place. And if you sit down and you ask, okay, what did this person experience? You're not going to make an intellectual argument, but you might be able to open them up to seeing if you accept them and welcome them. And if you have, that's a matter of privilege, right? It's easier for me to sit down and ask someone why they have this horribly homophobic perspective, for example, than it is for someone who is part of the LGBTQ community. So that could be triggering and dangerous. And so I don't necessarily advise that. But for me, I have the privilege of being able to listen the non-anxious, curious presence. Because the thing is, people are just afraid of being ignored and being, ignored and being excluded, even if all their lives they're used to being included, owning the table. And so that's the thing. This Picard show has this character, this work of art, tells a story of overcoming that division. And hopefully Star Wars, in a lot of ways, I think High Republic tells stories of overcoming divisions with all its diversity. I was talking about last night with Chris, diversity for the sake of community. That's the thing I'm really looking forward to, is the way for this museum is the way it can get us to reflect on our own experiences and our own perspectives, and both the reality, the realness of them, but the realness of them, but also the limits of them, of my own experiences and perspectives, and to say, yeah, we can all somehow come together. Yes, there are policy decisions to be made, and yes, there are policy decisions that are being made right now that are horribly damaging and inflicting damage on the country, on society, and probably on the world for decades. But how do we start to reverse those things?
Well, here's a question though about if art unites and propaganda divides, that I kind of wonder.
Or if myth unites, but yeah,
or myth unites.
Similar kind of thing. Yeah.
Why? What if someone wants to make a new myth that totally goes against the one we don't like, or something they don't like? Like, the myth of, let's say, you're an artist in the height of America. The myth of America is the greatest nation on earth. We won the war, apple pie, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I make a movie about how America was responsible for a bunch of deaths of Native Americans. I write a myth about the myth of the slavery.
A film starring Leonardo DiCaprio.
Sure, that too. Or just something that just totally goes against the wide popular united myth. Is that propaganda, or is that art, or is that art that challenge? Because that's something that I think that's also interesting to think about too, of the art that challenges
prophetic
the myth.
art.
Today, who makes the myth, right? Let's face it.
Yeah.
A lot of in America, especially in Canada too. A lot of white guys. A lot of white guys who make the myth. What about Chinese myths?
Yeah.
What about Russian myths? African
who lives
myths?
and dies, who tells your story.
There's myths before America was even born, man.
Yeah.
Everything. Not everything's about Europe. Some myths got sadly wiped out.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think that's all. There's a lot of this hyperbole, which I feel like in a deeper conversation I kind of disagree with. In terms of the myths unite us. I mean, that's definitely true.
Yeah.
But and also, could myths become propaganda? Like I think we as a collective did make the American myth of we beat the British and we took their tea. And then the government's like, we're going to use that myth to remind people why you don't rebel against the nation. Or how the Union won the Civil War. The Roman myth of Romulus and Remus and the wolf and the thing and that's the birth of the empire for the next 1,000 years.
Yeah.
It's both popular myth and propaganda.
Nice.
So there's that to think about as well. I don't know, kind of a little rambly there.
Yeah, well, it's not theoretical, right? I mean, Ovid did that. Contemporary. I mean, that's the prophetic literature, right? Going before the king and saying, like Nathan goes in front of David and says, this rich guy, he had lots of sheep, but he stole a sheep from his poor neighbor, and it's the only sheep he had. He loved that sheep, and They said, well, and Dave is all, well, screw that. We got to go take justice. And Nathan says, you're the sheep. You're the guy, and the sheep is Bathsheba, it's his wife, and that's a miniature what that literature
I got a
is.
better
But
example.
yeah,
Shakespeare.
yeah,
Star Wars is Shakespeare. And here's why I say that. It's Shakespeare because, we think of Shakespeare as like these and thous and, very sophisticated English. I think Shakespeare wasn't writing plays for the elite of the elite. He was writing plays for the workers and the people who are like, I wanted my whiskey after a hard day. I'm going to watch this play, drink with my buddies.
It's popular art.
It was popular art. It was for the masses. And here's the thing: a lot of the historical plays, like Richard III. Is it Richard III? I think it is. Maybe. One of those ones. It's also propaganda. The King with the Hump and the Who Wants a Horse. I forget which play that is. But that's also propaganda because you had to submit your plays to the British censorship at the time. And whenever he wrote those plays, the history plays, they were always like very pro the Tudor dynasty because Elizabeth was on the throne. It's like anti her grandfather / I don't know, the previous dynasty because they were the ones who she overthrew. So but we see them today as like these great plays and they're fun and they're artistic, but they're also totally propaganda because they're also saying, hey, the king before Elizabeth, they sucked, but the Tudor dynasty today, A+.
Yeah,
like glad we have those guys instead of that guy, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, a few things I was going to say. Gosh, I'm just forgetting. I'm doing too many things.
I'm sorry, I'm rambling about these things. These are just all my thoughts.
That's right. Well, no, I mean that's where this is a very Iron Canon discussion. We're getting to, and I knew we'd get there. I knew we'd do this.
Yay!
I wanted to do this because it just spurs these conversations. Who lives? Who dies? Who tells your story?
Exactly.
One of the biggest musicals of the biggest musical of the last 20 years. Sure. I mean, Hamilton. I'm watching this, and I actually just was reminded of this because I saw a barbershop quartet do You'll Be Back.
Oh, that's fun.
So I'm sitting here in Canada watching this musical. And I appreciate it's written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's Hispanic American with very black cast. George Washington is black, and Jefferson is black, and Hamilton himself and Bill Burr, Aaron Burr is black, and Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda is Hispanic, and all this cast and this R&B and rock and different styles. I'm like, still replicating the American founding myth. And I'm like, my favorite character is the king in this one. Not because
the crown.
I mean, part of that is like, I've mentioned this before, our head of state's some powerless bloke on the other side of the world. He's some guy named Charles who cares far more about democracy than the president of the United States does. What a world we're in now. But also, he has this funny thing where I think he's intended to be Miranda intended him to be a figure of the condescending establishment, and that Hamilton and Washington and them are the diverse community that is trying to actually move forward and create something new. But oddly enough, is that the American myth? Is that the American founding story? Is it this ragtag bunch of rebels? I mean, here's Star Wars for you. Is it this ragtag bunch of rebels who underfunded, struggling to get organized, and people don't believe in them because they're trying to do something radically new? Like, I mean, in the U.S., in that case, history of the American government, former republic, or is it the condescending establishment? And now I know, Joel, I'm sure what you were taught in school was it was the ragtag rebels who were going against this tyrannical dictatorship.
We took your tea. We took their tea.
Took the tea. But this is the experience often of the condescending establishment. And maybe that's partly what Miranda's saying, but which is clearly the musical saying that what America is the rebels, is the ragtag, the myth, and yet what we're seeing is it's also George III, right?
I mean, the real story is really just a bunch of landlords who didn't want to pay taxes to the king. Were like, we don't want to pay taxes to the king, so we'll form our own country so we don't have to pay taxes. And I mean that's even in the contradiction of Star Wars, which I think is just this is the Star Wars is very Americana. Rebel Alliance, go, but also its leaders are like Mon Mothma, she's rich. Bail Organa, she's married to a queen. Princess Leia, a princess. We know what the Mon Cala did. I told you what they did off camera. To the Quarren. Akbar, Akbar seems like he was like a counselor to the king of Mon Calamari. So it's like these. I mean, obviously in Star Wars, yes, I'm aware they're probably more noble but also that's the thing. Sorry to say, Mon Mothma is not real. She's fictional, and
there's that.
They don't, and there will never be a real life person like Mon Mothma ever.
I mean, there might
the
be.
world is too complicated for that. I wish there was a billionaire who funds anti-fascist militias. That'd be awesome. But I mean, there's that. So it's like again. The real world way more complicated than the myth. But I do want to say, because I feel like I've been a little negative, I do think artists are powerful, and I think the most powerful ones they know the times they are in. I think a lot about that with 2008's Iron Man, and even The Dark Knight, which also came out in 2008. I think of obviously Star Wars, where the original Star Wars 77, where America was tired. We just had to deal with Nixon. I think Carter was already president by then.
77?
Yeah. So probably. And we just needed a break, man. The Vietnam War was over and we lost. We need just some hope. Which also is interesting again in terms of Star Wars, in terms of like maybe kind of showing us the America we want in Luke Skywalker. It's almost like, if you want to really make the kind of weird arguments, it's sort of like the Empire, the America that under Nixon that we were all tired of, and Luke and the rebels are the America we want. If you want to read it in that,
I like that. That's interesting.
Or the America we think we could become, kind of a question, or are. I don't think George himself probably thought that. I think I agree when George always says, "Oh, they're the Viet Cong." But
the American society, the American person. I mean, that's the weird thing. It's one character.
Well, I mean, Luke is very much the American 70s college kid who, George Lucas lived in the farm of a rich middle class home. He wanted to go to college, and he did, and he got involved in all the radical college movements in the 60s, man, and the New Left and all that esoteric stuff. I don't think George himself did, but he was around it, so he probably knew about it. And then, and like Luke Skywalker, he joined the group and fought the no good, the man. So there's that. But yeah, I do think that artists can be powerful because they know their society, what their society is. And now, to be fair, I think if you make something that's sort of you can tell it's sort of out of touch with society. Like if someone made Birth of a Nation, the most racist movie ever today, genuinely, oh my gosh, that would bomb big time. Hopefully, maybe not. Or if people are, I mean, it's sort of like how we talked about before. People are very anti-institutions right now. What is the response to a very pro the institutions can work movie? Is it like new radical breath of fresh air, or is it rejection? I mean, I don't know. I don't have a good pulse on society on that, but that's something interesting to think about.
I mean, maybe it depends on how it works and what it
That too.
does.
That
Right?
could that possible. But
Mm-hmm.
I do think you are right, Matthew, in that artists
Mm-hmm.
are powerful, and if they can tap into what's going on in society,
Mm-hmm.
then you do get a Star Wars or an Iron Man or a Dark Knight, or
Yeah.
in today's world, a Superman.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Fantastic Four, but I can tell
Yeah.
Superman's really hitting the zeitgeist because again, I think it's
Mhm.
tapping into society
Yeah.
very directly with how Lex Luthor is portrayed, how Superman is sort of the guy on the outs, how the institutional superheroes are kind of lazy at the start of the film
Mhm.
before Superman inspires them. What the
What's
conflict's about.
yeah?
So yeah,
What's the quote? Kindness is rock or whatever it is. What's the
kindness is punk rock. He's a punk
kindness
rocker.
is
Yes,
punk
he is.
rock?
He's a
Man,
punk
what a
rocker.
great
Yes,
line.
I am. I'm a punk rocker. Yes, I am.
Kindness is punk rock. It's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm Kenneth is another good one, right?
Yeah.
That I mean, that also, I mean, tapping into struggles of gender with Barbie, but yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, so that's the thing I'm most excited for with this museum. I mean, you say that billionaires not funding um, resistance movements, but here's a billionaire saying, I'm just have this collection holed up in wherever. Uh, Here, come see my collection. Come over to my house and see all my Star Wars toys that I invented. Come and see my collection.
It's sad that you said that, and now I just want George Lucas in the Mon Mothma robes with around the circle, like he is the leader of our rebel alliance, leading the
Kinda.
military. I'm sorry.
So
Sad.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was. He made a point of saying, he's not
Mhm,
an art collector in the sense he doesn't care about flipping art,
mhm.
making millions. Like he could have. Who
Oh
knows
yeah.
how many billions of dollars he could have made on selling this collection? But no, he's. I mean, who knows what the admission fee is going to be? I imagine probably not going to be that much.
I hope not.
Hopefully not. Hopefully, I mean, discounted for folks who can't afford it. But hopefully, nice little perk, free with your Star Wars Celebration ticket, 2027. Shuttles from the LA Convention Center to the museum. I think that would be a great idea.
Mhm.
Encourage folks to go and experience and encounter this museum, encounter the influence of Star Wars, but more importantly, encounter themselves. It seems to be what really this is about. So yeah, spiritual experience. I mean that really, literally. Um, how music can be a spiritual experience. Well, this art can be a spiritual experience. Any kind of art can be a spiritual experience. No wonder music and visual art are so essential. Like in your point about icons, so essential to any religion's worship, any religion's services, right? It's
Mhm.
just this natural thing. It's the most obvious thing in the world that unless you're being intentionally iconoclastic, literally. Right? That's what iconoclasm literally means is you're breaking the icons because you don't want that kind of art. But you have literary art forms that it's the most obvious thing in the world that music and painting and sculpture
Yeah.
are taken up into our experience of the divine because the idea is the whole humanity is taken up into that. And so
And
um yeah,
popular art reflects our myth of a nation and what we're
yeah,
going through at the time.
yeah.
Uh
So
can I give like what two more examples of something I just thought of in terms of that
sure.
art
And
myth
then we
and stuff?
can wrap it up. Yeah.
And
Sure.
this is one I think George would appreciate if he could get his hands on it.
Mhm.
Although he probably can't for legal reasons. Godzilla. I bet you
He
George would like
might.
that.
He might have
I,
some Godzilla piece in there.
because Godzilla, in a weird way, is very reflective of his time and the myth.
Yes.
Like the original 54 is a story about the horrors of World War II, the bomb. Japan needs to learn its lessons. Don't do that again.
Right.
But also, it's like a little bit of like, hey, America bombed us with nukes, and now we got to get stuck with this. Like,
Mhm.
kind of suffering here. Um, it's funny enough. Another example of this, but like in the opposite way, is in the 1990s. There's a Godzilla movie called Godzilla versus King Ghidorah,
Mhm.
and there's a segment where you travel back in time. Godzilla gets a little weird, folks. Time travel aliens
Sure.
to World War II. And it's fascinating because in that movie,
Mhm.
Japanese soldiers in World War II are like portrayed very well, and the Americans are not. Like the idea of like the Godzillasaurus
Mhm.
dinosaur defends the Japanese troops from American bombardment,
Mhm.
and causes the American troops on the island to run away. And then there's like a whole scene where there's like the Japanese soldiers are like giving a salute to the Godzillasaurus pre-mutation. It's like,
Wow.
we salute you with honors for defending our island, and we will never forget
Mhm.
you. And one of the characters is like in the future with a World War II veteran who's now like a bajillionaire.
Mhm.
Um, and I just thought that it was interesting that that pop culture Godzilla movie was kind of reflecting the Japanese times of like the '90s, where it's like there's a little bit more nationalism in Japan, or a little bit more.
Mhm.
Hey, we weren't that bad. They're trying to propagate the culture, trying to be like maybe we weren't that bad, even though you totally
Mhm.
were in China. Um, so look at our noble soldiers, and
Mhm.
Godzilla's defending them, and so the little Japanese kids are like, "Yay, Japan and Godzilla!" I like Godzilla 'cause even I was like that when I was a kid, and I didn't know anything
Yeah.
about World War II. Where like, I was watching Godzilla defend the soldiers, and I'm like, child brain who knows nothing. It's like, oh, they must be the bad guys because Godzilla's fighting them. Godzilla always fights the bad guys. Um, so
That's a great example. Yeah.
it's sort of again that sort of art, propaganda, myths, all of that kind of coming together.
Education
Education.
of children.
Um, yeah. So I don't know what I had my point with making outside of like, well, it's always good when you see. I'm sure we'll see hopefully some of old school comics of Captain America punching the Nazis,
Yes.
like Del Toro said.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Before we go,
Mhm.
I feel like we haven't given Doug Chiang enough due. I feel like we've ignored him. Is
Yeah.
there
Well,
something you want to talk about with him?
uh, I mean, he reminded us again, similar to Ian McKaig, about how
Mhm.
art, art can tell a story,
Mhm.
right? And it
Oh,
tells a
totally.
story. He was talking more about how, uh, I mean, how the Star Wars designs, going especially from the original trilogy to the prequels. I mean, there's a there's a history there that, going from the example I'm going to bring up is going from the Actis Jedi Starfighter in Episode 3 to the TIE Fighter. There's clearly a lineage from the
Oh yeah.
Venator to the IS, Imperial Star Destroyer. I mean, it's obvious and visceral. We could
Phase 2,
immediately
Phase
grasp it.
3 clone trooper armor. Or
Yeah.
Phase 1, Phase 2.
Here's the 501st. 501st. There we go. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and from the Mandalorian helmet, right? So these kind of lived in real world not real world, the same logic of design lineage. So yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so and here's another last great point, So I mean that's why I hope we get some Godzilla. I'm guessing my sense is because they're gonna go into cave drawings, um another thing, cave drawings and
I like to
different.
think George is Godzilla nerd like me.
Well, he
Maybe,
did the Zula Beast episode, right?
maybe
And
King
that's
Kong.
also
Or maybe
Filoni.
take some King Kong.
Yeah. So I mean, because it's a great example he brought up, which I didn't know. So learned something new. But I do think that's a good place to wrap things up. Thanks for joining us. Great comments in the chat down below. For the most part, the one guy I got rid of, but yeah, Daisy and Din. Thanks so much for chiming in. And
Thanks,
if
guys.
you have thoughts, folks, you have thoughts, that comment section ain't going anywhere. Feel free to chime in further, as you're listening, as you're watching, wherever you watch your podcast, either on Facebook or YouTube or Twitch. I think Twitch, definitely on Facebook and YouTube. Please do check that out. Let us know what you thought of, what are you looking forward to at the Lucas Museum of Art. If you've seen, be able to catch the panel. I should put the panel, the YouTube of the panel in the notes.
I should have done that
I'll
too.
fix that. I'll
Okay,
get
then.
that in post. There's no post. I'll get that after the fact. But yeah, please do let us know. Also, we think of characters in Star Wars having their political allegiances on their sleeve, and also about the villain's journey. And if you love How I Met Your Mother and the connections to Barney and Vader, yeah, especially about art and the collective power of myth and propaganda and power and all those different things we talked about. A very classic Ion Canon.
Words mean?
What do those words mean? Yeah, propaganda means to propagate. Yeah. So again, thanks for joining us, sticking with us through to the end here. Again, let us know, comment below. Also, please do give us this video a like and a share. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Joel, what did I tell you? Classic Ion Canon discussion.
Heck, you were right. You were right. I was worrying for a second because I kind of the panel was fading out of my brain too for like a hot second. But I think you filled in some of the gaps, and I remembered some stuff, and I think we got a good discussion out of it. I even had more to say, and I forgot about some of it.
There we go.
Next time.
That's what this week is about, or can be about. Yeah. So thanks for leading us through this one. Where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me at JID20234 on Blue Sky, JID20234 on Blue Sky. And of course, you can find me on the Star Wars Underworld Discord, where, we talk about Star Wars, movies, Marvel, DC, and anime, all sorts of things. We have 2 game nights coming around, Tuesday and Friday. Fortnite, Minecraft, Fall Guys, anything. We have it, you'll play it.
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at MNEUG1138. That's MNEUG1138, also on Instagram, beaches.foodie, FOODIE. I just posted my San Diego eats up there. If you're curious to what I consumed, what I threw into my body, what I ate. Some really good picks. I'm actually proud of that one. Maybe not the first one. Gotta switch that around. But yeah, check that out. Lots of pasta, some seafood, bunch of stuff. Also, Twitter. I'm still on the Bird app. NEUG485. Instagram and Twitter. I'm probably gonna join the Taylorverse in an hour and 33 minutes. Whatever she's about to drop here, an hour and 33 minutes. So stay tuned for that. But please check that out. And again, Blue Sky Ion Canon Pod. No, just Ion Canon. Biscuit.social and at the SWU and at Culture Slate for all my San Diego photos, and lots of great stuff since. Also, again, don't check out the Tractor Beam this week because there won't be one. But if you are going to be at Fan Expo Canada, please, love to see you. 6 p.m. Friday, August 22nd in Theater 4, room 704. Ash and I are interviewing Ethan Sachs and Paolo Villanelli. And of course, check out last night's video on Outer Rim Transmissions. Chris and I talking all about the High Republic. It was a great discussion that we were able to dive just deep enough to talk only for 2.5 hours on the largest, most ambitious thing that Star Wars publishing has ever done, writ large, by a bit of a margin. And so it was.
I wouldn't mind doing a retrospective myself eventually.
We can. When you can. Yeah, we can figure that. We can schedule that for sure. But yeah, please do check that out. And then we will be back next week, kind of sorting out specifically what we're going to do. But we do know that, again, Fan Expo Canada will be just around the corner that week. So likely a bit of a con before the con, looking at what Star Wars offerings there are. There are a few. Ewan McGregor, certain fellow by the name of Ewan McGregor. Also, Dr. Pershing, that actor, has been announced. And, again, I got a panel. Dom has 2 panels. So you can chat about that and maybe a bit of a grab bag, maybe of an extended R week in Star Wars. Maybe if we have thoughts continuing on tonight's discussion or whatever pricks our fancy in Star Wars. So, yeah, looking forward again to another great Ion Canon podcast. We're going strong. This is episode 171, and we're looking at 172, and come up to 200 eventually, probably before the end of this year. No, probably not before the end of this year. I can do math, but it's been a good journey so far, and we're going to keep going. So looking forward to that. But yes, until next week, let's blow this thing and head home.